How's it going, everyone? It's the Natural here, and in MotoGP the manufacturers have a concession system, and in this video I'm going to explain what the concession system actually is. So, concessions in MotoGP, what is it? Well, it is for all the manufacturers. So take the current manufacturers we have in MotoGP right now: Ducati, Aprilia, KTM, Yamaha and Honda. 5 manufacturers. They are placed into a tier system, and in that tier system we find which manufacturers are struggling, which manufacturers are dominating and running away in MotoGP, and which ones have perks, which ones are limited to certain perks, and many other things. The ranking system, or the tier system in concessions in MotoGP. MotoGP has A, B, C and D category for the current manufacturers in the Premier class in MotoGP. Starting off in A is where we find Ducati. In B, there is no manufacturer currently in that concession system as the recording of this video. In rank C is where we find Aprilia and KTM, and in rank D is where we find the 2 struggling manufacturers currently right now, and that is Yamaha and Honda. And you may be asking yourself, Natural, what are the specs in rank A, B, C and D categories? Well, take rank A, where we find the Ducati team right now, and that is where they can only have 170 tires they can test. Their test rider is the only one that can do private testing, and he can only do private testing at 3 Grand Prix circuits. So, take the current 2025 MotoGP calendar. He can only test at, let's say, Mugello, Misano, Barcelona, whatever Grand Prix circuit. He can only test at 3 of them, and only 3 of them. Also, in this concession rank system, Ducati are only allowed 7 engines, and they cannot touch that engine during the season. Whatever they've got from pre-season, that is what it has to be, and if they touch that engine, you're getting penalties and God knows how many fines and many other things. So that is what they've got from round 1 to round 22, from literally the start of March all the way through to November. They cannot touch that engine, and they only have 7 engines during the season. Also, in rank A, there is no wildcards, so the test rider of the factory Ducati team cannot do a wildcard. The only time he could probably do a MotoGP race or a Grand Prix round is if one of the factory Ducati riders or one of the other Ducati riders in the Gresini team or the VR46 team has an injury and he is a replacement rider. That's the only time he can actually do a ride, really, because he cannot do a wild card because Ducati are limited to not doing any under the current concession system. Then we move into B rank, where we find no manufacturers currently in that ranking system right now. But in this B ranking system, everything else is the same as the A tier, apart from you have 3 wildcards, unlike 0 in the A tier, and you have 20 more tires you can test. That's about it. Everything else pretty much the same. Then we get into the C tier, and this is where we find Aprilia and KTM. And Aprilia and KTM have 50 more tires that they can test than the A rank tier. So Aprilia and KTM can test 50 more tires in testing than Ducati. So that is an advantage. And they have 6 wild cards that they can do, unlike Ducati, who have none. So take KTM and Aprilia's test riders. KTM have 2 factory test riders that are Dani Pedrosa and Paul Espargaro. One of them can do 3 wild cards, the other one can do 3 wild cards, or it sort of depends on which testing schedules they have, really. While Lorenzo Salvadori is, I think, the only test rider for Aprilia, and he will probably do all 6 wildcards for them. But also, just like the B and A rank, they can only test at 3 Grand Prix circuits, and it can only be the test riders. And then we get on to the D rank system, and this is where everything is completely and utterly different. And this is where we find the 2 Japanese manufacturers, Honda and Yamaha. They're in the D rank system, which is the lowest rank system. This is where the ranking system where if you're literally the struggling manufacturers that need the most help, this will benefit you massively. So Yamaha and Honda is where we find them in the D rank system, in the D tier, and they will have 90 more tires that they can test in testing than Ducati, and that is massive. That's nearly 100 tires that the Yamaha and Honda can test, or any team or any manufacturer in the D rank tier can do. That's a big, huge, massive step. Also, not just the test riders, but also the factory riders, the satellite riders, the full-time riders, they can test at any Grand Prix track on the calendar, and they have not limited to whatever practice or private testing that they can do. So they can literally test 10, 15, whatever circuits they want to do. They're not limited to any of them in the D tier system. They also have 6 wildcards. Usually the test riders, like I said, will pick these wildcards. So Yamaha have 2 test riders, Augusto Fernandez and Cal Crutchlow. Honda have 3 test riders, Aleix Espargaro, Taka Nakagami and Stefan Bradl. And another important one, unlike C, B and A, in rank D, they have 9 engines that they can have. So they get 2 more engines, unlike in the other 3 tier system. And these engines can literally be developed in season. Unlike Ducati, KTM and Aprilia, who whatever engine you've got for the round 1, that's what's going to be for round come 22 or come the end of the season. You cannot touch that engine until testing of next year. But unlike Yamaha and Honda, is where we find them in tier D, they can literally develop whatever engine, whatever spec of engine, multiple engines. They can bring 20 engines if they want to, develop 100 engines if they want to, literally during a season. So that is the tier system in MotoGP. But there's also one more thing in concessions that a lot of people mainly forget about, and that is the ranking tier window. MotoGP this is a new thing that MotoGP brought in literally last year, and it's sort of like a concession point system, and instead of obviously having podiums and wins, it's sort of depending on performance related really. So let's take Honda and Yamaha for example. During, let's say they improve their performances and then, maybe get 10 top 5s during the start of the season, or get a couple of podiums or whatever, and during sprint races as well, they could maybe move up the ranking system during the first window. And that first window is from pre-season to the summer break. So if Yamaha and Honda have a really good start and their bikes are really improving, then they can move up that ranking system from D to whatever, from D to C to B, whatever really. And there's a second one, like I said, which is from mid-season to the end of the season. So there's it's like a transfer window really, but for concessions, where you got like a 2 sort of, windows of pre-season to the summer break and mid-season to the end of the season sort of thing. That's pretty much the concession system in MotoGP. It is a brilliant and amazing system. We have seen so many, different manufacturers win MotoGP championships because of this concession system. Before the concession system was brought into MotoGP, Honda and Yamaha were the manufacturer. They were dominating MotoGP for many donkey's years really. And with Concessions now, we have seen Ducati win championships. We've seen a Suzuki win a championship. They're no longer in the sport, which is the real shame. We've also seen KTM and Aprilia now have bikes that were nobody wanted to ride on, and now they've got bikes that are got a current world champion on, and also bikes that can fight for a championship. The concession system for me is the best thing MotoGP have ever done to this sport, because not only does it make it so competitive, not only does it put on a great show for the fans, it also, other manufacturers want to come in, let's say BMW, Kawasaki, if Suzuki want to come back, Harley Davidson, whoever. The concession system is there for any manufacturer, any new manufacturer, or the current manufacturers currently in MotoGP to really have a go and maybe one day winning the championship. So everyone, that's the end of another video on the channel. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe as well. I hope you all have a wonderful and safe day out there. I'll see you again in another video. The Natural is out.